welcome to another episode of What's the Word Mi Gente, where I put a face to the resource in the city. You're watching episode 2, Protecting Your Business from Day One. How do you do that? We have an expert today to tell us how we can do that. We have Mr. Nathan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Tell us about what you do in your role at Marquette.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This is actually my first podcast. I'm an avid listener, but have not been on one yet. Thank you. So, again, my name's Nathan Hammons, and I am a professor at Marquette Law School, and I also am a practicing attorney, and I direct our program called the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic. And typically I describe it as, externally to entrepreneurs in the area. Think of us like a law firm that trains law students and provides free legal services to entrepreneurs and small businesses, focusing on those who lack access to the legal marketplace.
And these services are free for everyone, or do you have to be a Marquette student?
No. So actually, about 1/3 of our clients are Marquette affiliated. So Marquette students, faculty or staff, or some alums, but 2/3 are entrepreneurs. Honestly, now we used to focus more on the Milwaukee area, but given how easy it is to provide legal services virtually, we've expanded our outreach to other areas throughout the state.
Oh, that's amazing. And so how does someone contact the Marquette Legal Clinic?
So I'd say two ways. We'll typically get clients in two ways. One is referrals from our partner organizations. There's a number of excellent business support organizations in the community, like BizStarts, the Small Business Development Center, WIBIC, other organizations like that, and they'll send us entrepreneurs who are in need of legal services. And then the other one is people who find us online. So through the Marquette Law website, we actually have our own platform there that has free resources and forms for entrepreneurs. People will submit a request through that, or just general referrals, or possibly from listening to a podcast.
Hey, y'all heard that? Okay. So in the sense of protecting our business from day one, a lot of people don't know anything about the differences in entity structures. So how do you know what's the proper entity structure for yourself?
Yes, that's a good question. And I like to think about the law, like before we jump into entity structures, if we may, don't overcomplicate it. And it can be really intimidating to a lot of people, right? Like you read contracts or, the click to agree when you're installing a new app on your phone, and go, who actually reads, let alone writes these long legal documents? You look online, it can just be very intimidating. Try to keep it simple and try to get connected with someone like a resource like our clinic or a small business attorney who can really help you navigate it as you're launching your business.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like to view the law as a tool not only to protect yourself and your assets, but also as a vehicle for growing your business. Then try to set it and forget it, or at least put it on a routine process so that you as an entrepreneur can focus on the more important things, which is how do you grow your business? How do you get new clients? Things like that. So that's kind of setting the stage.
Amazing.
A fundamental question, like you said, is this thing called the business entity. And there are a bunch of different types of business entities, and I'll try to boil it down to a couple that typically are the best option. Now, as a preliminary note, it's not actually a type of business entity, but you as an entrepreneur can just go and do business. Like, let's say, I want to start a food truck business, something like that. If I go and buy a food truck and I get my licenses and I start selling my foods, I don't have a business entity, but I'm actually in business.
Okay.
Right? The problem with that, it's called the sole proprietorship, is that you have unlimited personal liability. So it's pretty risky, right? And so that's where you can do business as a sole proprietor, but in the state of Wisconsin and other states, it's relatively easy to form a business entity, and that will give you this thing called a liability shield. It can protect you in the event of a lawsuit, assuming that you have your affairs in order, which we can talk about that. Typically, the two best options for entrepreneurs are either a limited liability company, also called an LLC, or a corporation.
Okay.
All right. And for, I'd say, the large majority of our clients and for most entrepreneurs, an LLC is typically a very good option. If there are entrepreneurs, and we have those clients too, that say, look, I have a new app or a product, when I want to grow it big and fast and I want to go raise venture capital financing, that's probably a situation where a corporation will be a better option.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that VCs or venture capitalists typically require that you be what's called a C corporation,
Okay.
and even they'll even be more specific and say, we want you to be a Delaware C corporation.
Like the state of Delaware?
The state of Delaware.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what's the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp?
Yeah, so those are actually, it's a good question, types of taxation. So in Wisconsin, if you form a Wisconsin corporation, there's is this one type of corporation in Wisconsin called a corporation. There's nonprofits, and there's always exceptions, right? It's the law. But the main one is a corporation. The default taxation, so if I go through the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions, form a corporation, the IRS is going to tax me as a C corporation. So it's actually commonly referred to as double taxation, which isn't people assume it's the worst thing in the world, but oftentimes it's not necessarily. What that means is that the corporation itself will pay taxes on its corporate income.
Okay.
All right. And if it distributes profits to its owners called shareholders, that is taxed at a dividend rate or capital gains rate.
Okay.
All right. So that's where you get the two types of taxation.
Okay.
And S corporation, that's a specific, you file this form with the IRS or your accountant files the form, and then you're electing pass-through taxation under what's called Chapter S of the Internal Revenue Code.
Okay.
So the corporation itself doesn't pay taxes. They pass the income and losses pass through to the owners, and then they pay taxes.
And so the double taxation is for the C Corp, but not for the S Corp.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And what's the biggest difference between a for-profit entity and a nonprofit entity?
Yeah, so that's a great question as well. So it really gets around your purpose. And for most, so in Wisconsin, the technical word for a nonprofit is a non-stock corporation.
Okay.
And then what you can do is, so you form this thing through I'll call it the DFI, it's the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions. Other states have what's called the Secretary of State, and we have the DFI in Wisconsin. So let's say you go and you file your what are called your articles to form your non-stock corporation. Then what you do is you can file this form with the IRS and apply for a tax exemption, typically under 501c3, which is you say, I have a charitable purpose, right? And that's where you say, look, my purpose is not to generate profit for my shareholders. It's to do something charitable related that qualifies under the Internal Revenue Code. Now, a for-profit business is, of course, is where you're generating profit and hopefully a return for your shareholders.
So other than like the filing of things, can you run businesses the same as a nonprofit and a for-profit, or are there different specifications that are needed?
So they are. That's a great question as well. So in some circumstances, they are going to be run similarly, but a lot of it, I like to think about it too, just to make it a little bit more practical, is if we get a new client and they're not sure if they should be a for-profit or a not-for-profit, I'll say, how are you going to generate your revenue? All right, so is it through, the sale of goods or something like that, where it looks more like a traditional, and then you're going to make a profit because it takes you sell the goods at one price and your cost is lower than that, and that's a profit.
Right.
Or on the other hand, are you going to generate revenue for your business by soliciting charitable contributions, donations to your enterprise, things like that?
Okay. I've heard that for a nonprofit, you need a board of directors. Do you have any tips for how to choose board of directors? Yeah,
so that's actually a difference in Wisconsin between, let's say you have a Wisconsin corporation and a Wisconsin, I'll call it a nonprofit. The word is non-stock corporation. You can have a Wisconsin corporation with only a one-person board of directors. So it could be one person and they have three hats. They're the shareholder, so they own the shares that our ownership of the business. They're also the sole director for the corporation, and then they're also the officers for it. Seems kind of funny, but it's one person that
Right.
wears all three hats.
Okay. Kind of like Curious George.
Right. Lots of hats. And for a nonprofit in Wisconsin, you actually have to have a minimum of 3 directors on your board.
Okay.
And
And these can be anyone. Can it be your family members?
yeah, absolutely,
Or like,
it can be anybody.
Okay.
And I like to think, especially for a small nonprofit, who do you think is going to not only just go to a handful of board meetings, but who's going to help out otherwise, right? Who's going to have a long commitment to it? Who might have a different area of expertise? Maybe somebody's really good at finance and they can manage the bookkeeping for the business. Maybe someone else is good at risk management. Someone else is good at sales, soliciting contributions to the nonprofit, things like that.
And at what point in my business journey should I contact you? Should I contact the clinic right at the beginning, after I've already started and maybe I'm getting taxed and I didn't know I was going to get taxed in a certain way? Or when should we call you?
I'd say earlier is better. And there's different reasons for that. A lot of our clients that we get are opening a for-profit business. And one of the biggest things that you have to, or an issue to deal with for your business is, what are you going to call it?
Right.
Right? It's your name. It's your brand. And this is an area of the law called trademarks. And for some businesses, especially those that want to grow, provide their goods or services outside of the state, it's worthwhile to look into federal trademark registration. And there's a risk if you create your brand, and I've seen this unfortunately with clients. They have what they think is, and it's a great business name. They've got the domain for their website. They've started. They have branding material, and then a year later, 2 years later, they get this nasty letter called a cease and desist, which somebody else says, guess what? We have a federal trademark that's registered, and yours infringes our trademark, so you have to stop using yours. And the tough thing, if it does, then you have to rebrand. And it's, once you've started generating, a goodwill for your business, it's very, very painful and expensive to have to rebrand. So it's better to do that earlier rather than later.
And are trademarks only federal, or is this like a state thing as well?
So you can do a state registration. It's only $15 in the state of Wisconsin. There are some benefits to it. It gets your name in the state database. It might prevent others from using that. But you get your most bang from your buck through federal registration.
Okay.
There's a lot of legal advantages you get by actually having a federal trademark.
Okay. And if I have like a name in one state, does that mean someone in another state can get the same name? Or like, does it mean like if I have a Wisconsin LLC, no one else can purchase this name? Or is that only when a trademark is kind of comes
Yeah, so
in?
I would treat LLC corporation a little bit separately. Ultimately, when you have that entity, the trademark is going to be owned by the business entity.
Okay.
But for your business, hopefully business entity, the way it works is if you get a federal trademark, you actually have a presumption of ownership in all 50 states.
Wow.
So even though you might not be selling your cool product in Florida or Maine or some other state, if somebody starts selling a similar product using
Got that right.
a similar trademark, and they're infringing your trademark, that's when you get to have your attorney send the cease and desist and hopefully have them rebrand instead of
Okay.
you for your business.
I love that. And then earlier you mentioned a Delaware corporation. What makes that one so special?
Yeah, good question. So why VCs love this so much? And I think something like over half of publicly traded companies are incorporated as Delaware, corporations. First off, they have courts called courts of chancery, which are dedicated business courts that have judges who are experts in business law. And so many VCs, they think if we end up in court, we're going to get a fair shake at these courts. They also regularly update their business corporation law, and they want to make it very modern and reflective of current business needs. And so those are a couple of the main reasons why VCs prefer to have at least startups that are going the venture capital route incorporate as Delaware C Corps.
That makes sense. Okay, so I have my entity. do I have to get an EIN, or is that specific for like a certain kind of business?
So it's very easy to get an EIN. You can get it through the IRS website. Sometimes if you go to a bank, they'll actually say, look, you need an EIN. They'll help you obtain one. So there are a couple instances where it's technically not required.
Okay.
So if I'm just a one-person business, I have my LLC, I have no employees, I technically don't need an EIN.
Okay.
The second that you have two or more owners, or that you start having employees, then you would need an EIN.
Okay.
But typically, because even if you're, a one-person LLC, and you don't have those initial things initially, it's free to obtain an EIN. So that we typically recommend that you obtain one.
Y'all hear that? It's free. Don't pay for an EIN out here.
Do not. And that's actually, in terms of pay, one reason why I will refer people away. There's websites, I'm not going to mention any names, where they try to upsell entrepreneurs on things they don't need. Right? So you have to look out for that.
Okay.
So, for example, to form an LLC in Wisconsin, an entrepreneur can do it, or they can work with an attorney, and it costs $130.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's an exception. I don't know any other state that does this.
The student LLC?
The student LLC,
Yeah.
it's actually free.
Yep, that's the 502 SE.
Yep, that's right. But for others, you can actually go to the state of Wisconsin has something called the One Stop Portal, or through the DFI website. There is it's a series of questions and a form that you submit. You pay $130 at the end. Shortly after that, you're going to get an email from the DFI saying, "Congratulations, you have an LLC."
And you would receive an articles of organization at that point?
So that's actually what you do, is that filing, when you answer those questions and submit it, you're technically filing your articles of organization with the DFI, and then they'll send you a copy of it.
Okay, cool. So I have my LLC. I have potentially my EIN.
Yep.
Is there any other legal help that I would need as a startup or in any business?
So another really important or key document for when you've started your LLC is what's called an operating agreement.
Okay.
And you can think of it kind of, and it's an internal document. You don't file this with the state. You can think of it kind of the rules of the road, or really important things for managing and maintaining your LLC. And there's some key things that you can put in there, like how is it going to be managed? Is it going to be managed by the members, the owners, or instead people that are designated as managers? How are profits and losses going to be split? Okay. Now, I'd say even as a one-person LLC, it's called a single-member LLC, an operating agreement isn't technically required. It's still really beneficial to have one. I'd say a written one.
Okay.
Now, for where you have an LLC owned by two or more people, super important.
Okay.
Right? Because how are you going to deal with disputes? What is each, owner putting into the business? How do you distribute profits? How
many votes do people get? And
right.
That kind
How
of
does
stuff?
somebody leave the LLC? How do you bring on board a new member? These are all really important topics, and that's why you need a good operating agreement.
And then are there different lawyers for different industries? Or is there like a general business lawyer that like someone can obtain?
Yeah, so that's where the legal field actually differs from fields like medicine, where somebody might have, a particular specialization where they go through a residency and they get certified in particular. So in the law, technically the only true separate certification is for patents.
Okay.
Non-patent attorneys, so most attorneys end up specializing.
Okay.
So you can see, look, it looks like this person does specialize in the food and beverage industry or in real estate. So you'll encounter attorneys who can say they handle a wide variety of things. I'd say if you're interviewing an attorney, it's like with any service provider, if you're going to hire somebody, go interview, 2 or 3. Ask them a lot of questions and see who would, find out, what the estimated rate, the cost is going to be, and try to, find somebody who's going to be the best fit for your business.
That makes sense. And then, so you also mentioned to me that you used to have a business. Can you talk about like some upsides that you had, some downsides that you had in this business?
Yeah, I learned a ton from doing this. So it was actually back in 2009, and my wife and I had moved to New York. I had always had, like, call it the entrepreneurial spirit, an interest in, lowering cost for entrepreneurs. And there was a movement to have more legal information and forms put online. So I started a business called Simply Contracts.
Okay.
And the idea was to provide legal forms and information to both individuals and businesses.
Okay.
So I learned a ton in the process, because not only did I have my lawyer hat, but I had to learn, okay, how do you do this thing called content marketing? How do you get ranked in Google? How do you land new customers, make sales online? I learned a ton in the process.
Do you still have that business now?
I do not. So now my day job is my full focus. What I learned from it, a couple things. One, I learned with the web, you can't just set it and forget it, right? Like, getting ranked in Google, staying there, relying that as a source of referrals. It went from where I'd have, a ton of sales because I was ranked number 1 or 2 or 3 on the first page, but then Google would change its algorithm and I'd get bumped to the second page and my sales would drop off 90%.
Oh, wow.
I also learned, as I scaled my business, I wasn't very good at outsourcing and hiring other people. Really important, right? So I was too independent. I would have been more successful if I had actually, enlisted more people to support and grow my business.
Okay. Well, in the spirit of that business, what kinds of contracts should businesses have?
Okay, great question as well. Let's see. So it really depends on your type of business. And what I like to, when we ask clients, I'll say, what's your core thing that you're providing? Is it a good or is it a service? For many services, if you have a client, your client contract is going to be really important. This is what each new client is going to sign, right? Everything from, construction to housekeeping services. If you have an app, for example, it's your terms of service. That's going to be your contract with your users or your customers. So what I'll typically say is spend a lot of time getting that contract right, right? Work with an attorney, get a good form. Some people, it's very easy. Go Google something and you find something on there. Chances are it's not going to be that good. We're seeing a lot more clients that are using ChatGPT and other generative AI platforms to draft their contracts. There are worse things in the world to use, but oftentimes if you ask for, a generative AI program to make a contract, it's not going to get it right. It's going to miss things. It's going to be too short. It's not going to fit your business. I'm a big advocate for generative AI platforms. I use them daily, but for entrepreneurs that want to use it for self-legal help, you have to be careful.
Okay. So again, you mentioned that your services are free. What all are the services that you all offer?
Yeah, so we offer 2 different types of services. One is, and here's where most people that apply to our clinic, we can at least provide a pro bono, a brief advice meeting. So it might be 45 minutes long. And so that's where during that meeting, people might send us documents in advance. They'll send us a list of questions. We'll try to answer all of those questions to the best of our ability within that allotted time. In some cases, they apply for another, meeting with us 6 months later, and we can meet again, as their business grows and they have other legal questions. The other thing, for a limited number of clients, it's about 25 per year. We actually enter into a more full service business relationship, and that's where we operate like a law firm, where we can actually prepare the contract, do a full trademark clearance search and help with federal registration, provide legal counsel on, thorny legal problems that might have come up for a business.
That's super nice. And all for free, or is that second bucket at charge?
Nope, it's all for free. Okay. So where clients have to pay is that it's for out-of-pocket costs. So when you form that LLC, you've got to pay that. The entrepreneur has to pay that $130. Fees, unfortunately, recently went up for federal trademarks. So the lowest cost option for for like the most basic trademark for one, it's called one international class, $350. So that's where entrepreneurs have to pay that themselves.
Okay. And what are some of the biggest legal mistakes that you see in entrepreneurs today?
Good question. So I'll mention a few. So the first one is, I'd say, setting up good systems for management of money. All right, so it's really important when you form that LLC, go to your bank or credit union and open a business checking account. Try to find one that doesn't have high monthly fees, okay? And then what you want to do is be super diligent in, any revenue that you get. If you have a product sale, put the money in that account.
Okay.
All right, and
just keep it in your personal. You have to split them up.
So you can, so don't move it directly to your personal. What you should do, put it in that account. Now, if you have an LLC, as an owner, as a member, you can take if it's just a one person, you get to decide when to take money out. If it's two people, your operating agreement will say, okay, you can have a vote and make a distribution from your LLC.
Okay.
But you always want it to follow that path from sale to business checking to then your personal account.
Okay.
And what you want to be careful. So let's say you have a business debit card. Don't use that for personal purchases.
We love that.
All right. So only use it for business stuff. All right. And likewise, if you have your own personal money, don't put that in the business checking account. So it's really keeping separate accounts super important.
Right.
The other thing to do is anytime you have, and actually I'd say bigger picture, having a helpful accountant or bookkeeper, say both, actually can be really helpful to make sure you don't make any financial missteps in your business.
Absolutely.
Another key mistake is to not thoroughly review a contract before signing it. And I've seen that, unfortunately, with commercial leases. Again, they can be confusing. Working with small business owners, they're opening a storefront around Milwaukee, and it might seem like this landlord says it's take it or leave it, and you don't see the risks in there because commercial leases look very different than a personal lease. So then they sign this and they don't realize they're on the hook for other costs.
Right.
The rent is going to be going up every year. What happens if the roof starts leaking?
It could be a triple net lease or things
exactly.
like that.
So you have to be very careful about signing a document like that. Another big one is, I'd call it informality. I've seen this with a number of entrepreneurs where they have a friend or a relative create something for their business, right? Like I have, this friend over here is a web designer, so they did my website and they, took all these pictures for me, and they have no contract in place. Not technically, but actually under U.S. copyright law, that person as an independent contractor, they're going to own copyright to that unless they sign a written agreement transferring ownership to your business.
Oh, okay.
So that's where it's really important to have a good contract with. So anybody who's providing something for your business, consultants, independent contractors, make sure you have a good written contract with them, because as a business owner, you want your business to own all of the IP, all the intellectual property.
I love that. So what if a business gets in trouble legally? Can they still call your clinic, or would that be like a different kind of attorney?
We'll typically we don't deal, lawsuits, threats of trademark infringement. They can contact us, but we refer those out.
Okay, beautiful. And any other tips that you have for entrepreneurs that want to make sure that they start this process correct from day one?
I would say I see some entrepreneurs who they're a little hesitant because they think they need all of their legal ducks in a row, and they go, I'm too worried about a lawsuit or doing anything. And I say, connect with the right people and get out there and launch your business. I think right now is an incredible time to start a business, not only in our country, but in Milwaukee in particular.
Right.
Costs have come down tremendously. There's terrific resources. Like I said, platforms like ChatGPT, even though they still get things wrong, they're not perfect, they can make you, as you launch your business, like incredibly more successful and efficient. So you can consider, using tools like that to help, make your business successful.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT every day. So can you tell us one more time how people can connect with the Marquette Clinic?
Yeah, you bet. So if you go to the law school's website, so it's law.marquette.edu, and then put in a / And then our platform, we built one actually from a grant from the state called Build.
Okay.
So BUILD. So it's law.marquette.edu/build. This is a platform that has free legal resources and forms like LLC operating agreements, independent contractor agreements, and also a form on there where you can submit a request for pro bono legal services.
I love that. And what's your favorite part about working at the clinic?
Oh, well, I have so many favorite parts. I love being able to help it's the best of both worlds because I get to help students and get them out of the classroom working with live clients, and these are clients that we get to support. It's incredibly empowering when you can create something and it's working in the marketplace. It's an exciting time.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time today and all of your knowledge. Y'all, shout out to the Marquette Law Clinic. I am a Marquette graduate myself and also UWM graduate. So holla at Nathan for some help. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
And we'll see y'all on the next episode. Bye.
All right. Bye.